What is going on, Bucs fans and CFP fans? Evan Wanish here, back at you with yet another video talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And today we are going to be doing our positional previews, or beginning our positional previews, I guess I should say, for the 2024 season, ahead of training camp, ahead of the preseason, and of course, the regular season. And we're going to be beginning today with the quarterback position. Now, I'm going to be completely honest. This is probably a little less interesting than it was last year at this time, just because last year at this time you had the battle, right, between Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask. We had no idea how Baker Mayfield was going to be, how he was going to perform, and how he was going to look in that sense. And then, it ended up being pretty good for the Buccaneers, right? It ended up working out pretty well for them, and Baker Mayfield was pretty good, right? Obviously beats Kyle Trask out in training camp, has a pretty good season, takes him to the playoffs, wins a playoff game, and almost beats Detroit there in the divisional round. But Mayfield then re-signed with the Buccaneers. So Baker Mayfield is back, and he is going to be your starter. I don't believe there's going to be much of a topic of debate there this training camp like it was last year. But Baker Mayfield is going to be your starter. So you got Baker back, and the expectations for him are, I think a little bit raised, but also there's a little bit of uncertainty because, again, the Buccaneers for the second straight year have a brand new offensive coordinator in Liam Cohen. So he is familiar with Baker Mayfield, but it still is going to be a slightly different offense. So we'll see how Mayfield and company adjust to that. Behind him, though, and honestly, this room remains largely the same from last year, except for one guy who we'll get into a little bit later. But behind him is Kyle Trask, of course. Trask, he is what he is at this point. To me, it's clear that the Buccaneers do not really have him in much future plans. That doesn't mean they're going to trade him, because depth is depth, and depth at the quarterback position is so crucial. Ask the New York Jets that last year, right? They didn't really have great depth. Zach Wilson was not an answer, and they missed the playoffs because of it once Aaron Rodgers went down. So depth is always something to have. That's why when people ask me, are they going to trade Kyle Trask? I say probably not, because what's the most you're going to get back for Trask? A late day 3 pick? Maybe a day 3 pick swap? Like, is that really worth it? You might as well just have him on your roster. He's cheap, he's young, and like I said, depth is always good to have, especially at a position as important as the quarterback position. So behind him is going to be John Wolford. John Wolford returns to the Buccaneers he was a pretty solid, had a pretty solid camp. And there was days, I remember last training camp, where John Wolford was actually the best quarterback that the Bucs had the best day, or he looked pretty good in the preseason last year. So he'll look to continue that success this upcoming training camp and preseason as well. So we'll see if he can replicate the success he had in the preseason and training camp last year. But he is back for the Buccaneers, and again, serving as that veteran QB3 that can step in if need be, if in an emergency situation. I do think John Wolford could be a pretty good option. And you know what? He's a darn good QB3 in my opinion. He is a pretty good quarterback 3. I wouldn't have much of an issue if Trask wasn't on the roster and Wolford was the backup. Like if that was how it had to be, I don't think that would be a bad spot to be in. And the one new name that we have is actually an undrafted free agent out of Illinois State. We have Zach Annexstad, quarterback out of Illinois State. He's 6'3", 220 pounds. He's 24 years old. Obviously, it's an undrafted free agent, maybe a practice squad guy. You get a look at him in training camp and potentially a little bit in the preseason. But at the end of the day, it is what it is, right? It's just a guy who you're going to give a look to. Maybe you see something you like on film there. You want to get him in the building, see how he does. And, you also need bodies for training camp. That's another thing as well. So when you're looking at this quarterback room, though, all eyes are obviously going to be on Baker Mayfield, right? And how does Baker Mayfield perform? Because really, it could be a big determining factor in how the Buccaneers perform in 2024. I think they go as Baker Mayfield does. And last year, Baker Mayfield was good. But an issue in Baker Mayfield's career has been that consistency. So hopefully he can put it together again for a second straight season and be good. Because if he's not, I think that raises a lot of questions. And it was a lot easier last year, right? When he was on a 1-year deal. And if he wasn't that good, the Buccaneers could have very easily have moved on, right? It wouldn't have been much of an issue. Now he has a brand new contract, a bigger contract where it makes it a bit more complicated, right? Where if he has a bad year, you're probably stuck with him for a second year. So it's important for Baker Mayfield, I think, to come out quick, to come out and establish, establish a tempo, make sure he's familiar with the offense and comfortable in the offense. Again, it's a brand new offensive coordinator. I think that matters more than a lot of people do. I know they're going to say, well, it's similar, playbooks and stuff. It still is a new system, though, right? And Baker Mayfield in his career has had a bunch of different offensive coordinators and head coaches. That has led also to the inconsistencies as well. So I just think it's something to keep an eye out on. But again, this team will go as far as Baker Mayfield takes them. I think, and that's most teams in the NFL. That's not just a Buccaneers thing. I think the quarterback is the most important position in football, and Baker Mayfield played well last year. And the Buccaneers, I think their record, sort of reflected that. And he played really well in the playoff game against Philly. Played okay against Detroit in the playoffs. Had some moments where could have made some better plays, but overall, I don't think he played bad by any stretch of the imagination there. And I do think that Baker Mayfield, with the Buccaneers retaining Mike Evans, having Rachaad White back in the fold, even adding a guy, Jalen McMillan, Kate Otten going into another year, drafting Graham Barton to be the center. I think the run game should be improved. That should help Baker Mayfield as well. So we will see what type of year Baker Mayfield has in store for 2024. And we'll see hopefully, Baker Mayfield's the only guy we have to really talk about during the regular season, right? That's on this list. You don't want to be talking about Kyle Trask or John Wolford or even Annexstad, right? You don't want to talk about those guys because that means that either one, Mayfield's not doing good, or two, he's hurt. So hopefully Baker Mayfield is going to be the guy we're going to be talking about the most this upcoming season. Hopefully it's a lot of good things. So with that being said, let me know what you guys think about the quarterback room. Are you nervous about Mayfield heading into another year? Are you confident about Mayfield heading into another year? Do you think Trask, could maybe garner some trade value that I don't think he has, but maybe you guys do? What do you guys think of this quarterback room? I'm curious to hear your thoughts, but let us know in the comments section below. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and go Bucs.